Birds are amazing creatures that live extraordinary lives. It's relatively easy to photograph a bird perched on a branch, but to try and capture the character of that bird, that's where it gets really interesting. Because each species differs from the next, not just in terms of how they look and sound, but their preferred habitat, diet, how they attract a mate, the nest they build, and their ability to fly. To try and understand Rwanda's birds and create better photographs, I've studied avian biology and physiology. I've consulted with ornithologists, conservationists, and naturalists, as well as Rwanda's bird guides and the wider birding community here in Rwanda and across much of the African continent. The more I learn, the more I realize how little I know, but the more excited I become to learn more. Most animal species are camouflaged. They keep quiet and stay hidden from us humans, and for good reason. Birds, on the other hand, prefer to make their presence known. They're brightly coloured or boldly patterned. From the moment we wake in the morning until long after the sun sets, birds are the animals that can be seen and heard the most. They're in our skies, our gardens, our cities, forests, mountains, and waterways. Birds are embedded in humanity and have been throughout our collective history. This is definitely the case here in Rwanda. Birds have had and continue to play a central role in Rwandan culture. Even today, Rwanda's largest milk, yogurt and juice company is called Inyange. Inyange is a Kinyarwanda word for cattle egret.
Flocks of cattle egrets are often seen with grazing crowds when you travel across the country. The egrets feast on insects disturbed by the movement of those larger grazing animals. When you take a moment to look and listen, it's hard not to be struck by the sheer awesomeness of Rwanda's birds. They come in all shapes and sizes, from the lightest sunbird, weighing just 5 grams, through to the heaviest vulture, weighing as much as 9.5 kilos. It might be the bright colours and bold patterns that first grabs your attention. From brightly coloured bush shrikes and iridescent sunbirds through to boldly patterned black and white pied kingfishers. If it's not the colours and patterns, then the medley of call and bird song that punctuates Rwanda's daily life will definitely grab your attention. From melodic songs of canaries and robin chats, through to gregarious calls of ibises, hammercocks and cranes. They're all part of Rwanda's soundtrack and rhythm of life. Rwanda's home to approximately 710 different species of bird. Some 520 are residents, so can be found throughout the year in their different habitats across Rwanda. Of those residents, some are endemic to the Albertine Rift, so can only be found in a mountain range which runs through Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, and the west of Rwanda. Others are Lake Victoria endemics. The remaining 190 species are seasonal visitors or migrants, and so only call Rwanda home for part of the year. Some of these migrants travel to Rwanda from other countries on the African continent, whilst others travel from as far as Northern Asia and Europe. A great example of an epic migration journey can be seen with the willow warbler. This plucky little bird, weighing only as much as 3 packets of sugar you'd find in a cafe, travels from northern Asian countries such as Siberia to sub-Saharan Africa, over mountains, oceans, deserts, covering distances of between 8 and 13,000 kilometers. And they do this astounding journey twice a year. Such avian diversity is not only found in Rwanda's national parks, forests, and rural areas, but also in its cities. For example, Kigali city is home to more than 250 different species of bird. From the stunning Ross's turrico, that likes to forage for fruit in the canopy of trees, through to the awesome double-toothed barbet, that likes to nest in cavities in the city's old acacia trees. The hills on which Kigali is built are surrounded by wetlands, and the birds found in these wetlands are also visitors to the city itself. The density of Rwanda's bird species has a lot to do with its central location on the African continent, as well as its own unique geography. Rwanda's central location makes for an ideal stopover location for migratory birds needing to rest, recuperate, and refuel before an onward journey. The north of Rwanda is well known for its volcanoes, so higher elevations and cooler temperatures. The east has lower elevations, is drier, and opens up to scrubland and savanna. The south is dominated by marshes and wetlands, and the west by hills and forests. Rivers weave across the country, with wetlands and marshes along the river valleys, and large lakes in the north, west, and east of the country. The variation in elevation across the land of 1,000 hills is yet another reason for its wealth of avian life. The vegetation growing at higher elevations differs from that found at lower elevations and along the valley floors, and each subtle change in vegetation attracts a different suite of birds. Understanding this rich array of habitats and ecosystems is crucial to understand why Rwanda has such awesome birds. The presence of such avian density and diversity speaks volumes for the current environmental health of Rwanda. Unfortunately, this is not the case across much of the world. We need birds a lot more than they need us. They play an essential role in the functioning of the world's natural ecosystems in ways that directly impacts human health, the economy, and food production. Birds play a critical role as plant pollinators. Globally, over 2,000 bird species help pollinate the world's plants and trees, some of which we use for food and medicine. The family of sunbirds found here in Rwanda and across much of Africa and Asia are great examples of these pollinators. Birds are also important agents of seed dispersal. It's well known that birds eat fruit, and fruit contains seeds. Once swallowed, digestion of that fruit takes time, allowing the birds to fly somewhere distant from the parent plant or tree. The seed-strewn droppings that follow enable new plants and new trees to grow in new locations. The awesome family of turacos found here in Rwanda are great examples of these seed dispersers. The diet of many birds consists of insects, and even those that prefer fruit and seeds will often supplement the diet of their young with insects for the added nutritional value. By doing so, they keep natural ecosystems in balance and help control pest populations. A recent study has shown that globally, birds eat between 400 and 500 million tons of insects each year. The warblers and prineers, alongside many other species found here, all help with this task. The birds that eat flying insects also help prevent the spread of disease. This includes, but is not limited to, malaria, sleeping sickness, dengue fever, and the Zika virus. The flycatchers, swallows, swifts, and beaters are great examples of families of birds found in Rwanda that carry out a disease prevention function. Owls and other raptors also help control rodent populations. Some birds are known as scavengers, and probably the best known of those are the vultures. Scavengers are often misunderstood and underappreciated, but they're the cleanup crew of the bird world. Often seen soaring on thermals high above us, it's their speed of arrival at a carcass and their thoroughness that makes them so valuable. By feasting on the carcasses of dead animals, they help control the spread of disease, because what takes them hours to remove will take days or even weeks to decompose on its own. Vultures and other scavengers have strong stomach acid, which neutralizes pathogens, enabling them to digest decaying flesh. However, poisoning and habitat destruction across much of their range has led to nearly all the world's vulture species being listed as critically endangered by the International Unit for the Conservation of Nature. The presence, absence, or decline of birds is a stark indicator of the health of an environment, a national park, a city, a country, our planet. Like us, birds require food, water, and a safe place to raise their young. Without access to these basic requirements, birds will leave the area they're currently living and look for somewhere more suitable. But because of human activities, most good territories are now full. So the loss of any further habitat will mean that the occupying birds will most likely die, because there's nowhere else for them to go.
This is definitely the case for those species with highly specialized habitat requirements. The only winners are those that can live alongside us in disturbed habitats.
It's now widely acknowledged that seeing and hearing birds improves our mental well-being and has lasting positive impacts for our mental health. Getting outside and watching birds forces us to focus on the here and now. Birds are good for us. On a personal note, 2023 has been somewhat of a turbulent year for my family and I. We've dealt with multiple cancer diagnoses and long-term separations. But being able to get out into nature, to listen to watch and photograph birds has given me the space to process, recharge, and keep going through these difficult times. By focusing on the birds and my photography, all the other thoughts and fears swirling around my head, they fade for that short time. So perhaps the most valuable role the birds play is actually the hardest to quantify. How birds look and sound enriches our lives, even if we don't realize it. The continued decline of the global bird population should raise a huge red flag that we are doing something very radically wrong to our planet, especially when the cause and those that will ultimately suffer are us humans. Our use of chemical pesticides, our destruction of habitats, the pace of climate change, they're all responsible for the decline of the birds on which we depend. The lives of birds and their success is intrinsically linked to our own health and that of the planet. So we can and we must do better. Thank you.